Okay, so I just recorded this whole video making this track from scratch, and I had my screen resized weird because I moved from using my laptop to my monitor. So basically you're not going to see exactly how this track was created, but what you will be able to see is basically what I did, and I'll walk you through it from left to right because that's how I wrote the track. So first and foremost, let's make this zoom a little bit smaller so you can see what's going on. And I'll walk you through. So if you don't know how my template is already laid out, I basically have the drums here at the top separated, so the crashes and the cymbals, whatever. I have a group called softies. These are my synths and my atmospheres. And then I have a group called heavies. These are going to be my right and left guitars. A regular mid guitar, that's kind of providing the bulk of the sound. And then we are using double bass at the bottom. Now, what I started with here was this guitar, or the synth loop rather, and this is what it sounds like. So it sounds pretty cool. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking a Prince preset and I'm just distorting it a ton. So I'm using 17.9 decibels of gain there, and then some space, so some reverb and some delay. And then I'm using another Prince right below that to add some atmosphere. This preset is the Crystal Horizon. Same thing here, I'm just using a ton of distortion to make it sound pretty kind of gritty, grimy, to fit kind of a metal track. And then we're using quite a bit of reverb there too. That sounds like this. And then I'm using a pad for my rhythm sample pack. This one just has chroma in it with the E and the F dialed in, and I have the sample pitched up an octave, and then we have an LFO being turned on as this sample rings out to give it more of a plucky feel. So that sounds like this. And then the bass is following that same type of thing. So that sounds cool. Now, what I did now is I went ahead and I copy pasted this beginning synth part to lead into our main guitar break, I guess. And then we wrote this little melody. And then that's copy and pasted throughout these sections. So basically what I did is I wrote something that sounded just flat. So I wrote all these notes on E, but I wrote a rhythm I liked in the actual full video. And then all I did was I just changed certain rhythms. So if I wrote the note here, I would just erase it to see how that felt. And then here, I don't like how it just kind of duplicated the same thing. So I panned it up an octave or shifted it up an octave, and then so on and so forth. Then I copy that to the right and the left channel. And then I copy that to my mid channel and my basses. And then you get something all together that sounds like this. So it sounds decent. And then all I do is I copy that drum MIDI or that guitar MIDI to my drums. And then I just move all of the notes onto our C0. I copy the kick pattern or the guitar pattern to the kicks, add the snares, and then I just randomly do fills at the end of the phrases without hearing them. That way I can kind of just dial them in without having to be like, oh, that sounds good, I'm not going to do a fill there, when in reality I know it needs it. I have a second drum track, and these are just for less real sounding drums, but like transients, like a lot of band uses, to make the drum sound a lot better. So here's just with the kit. And then if we listen to it with the second drums and the cymbals. You can see that sounds a lot better than what just the regular drums would sound like. Now moving on, we just have the synth repeat a section again. So intro, main kind of break, we have the synths again along with the bass, and this is just emulating the first pattern. And then we have the atmosphere kind of going into it with just that bottom atmosphere to kind of give it like an easy feeling. That way we can lead into the break. So here's what everything sounds like together from here on out. basically see what's happening. We're just kind of copying those elements and leaving them out. So theoretically, this isn't going to sound as kind of bland when there's vocals or whatever type of instrumentation. Anyways, moving on to the break. Same thing with our beginning part. All I did was I kind of just copied a section here. So all of these notes were E, just our root note. And then I will copy that throughout and then just make this note kind of like a, I forget what it's called, but like kind of like the pluck note when you kind of hold it instead of it being open. And then I'll just sprinkle those throughout. If this note is having multiple throughout here, I'll extend this note to make it sound a little bit less repetitive, and then so on and so forth. So basically just had all E's here, would change the velocity of the note, change the rhythm a little bit just randomly, and then I would start to kind of mess with where I wanted the upper notes to go or different note variations. So I like to go up to the F a lot just to make it sound a little bit more dissonant, and then I like to go up octaves in order to kind of fill in the space at the end. Same thing with my drums. All I'm doing is I'm just copy pasting this guitar MIDI. I'm moving it up to my drums, and then I am just writing fills as I see fit. So at the end of phrases mostly. So all together we have a little fill before here. And then we kind of come back in with the synths and everything towards the end, just to kind of round it out and bring back some familiarity. And that's where the song would kind of end. So last but not least, I basically just have a mastering chain with a Munson EQ on it, a saturator, and then an ozone. This is a metal preset, and I just have it kind of dialed in a little bit. So threshold is at -4, ceiling at 0. And I don't think I messed with any of the EQ. So this is just a stock ozone 9 metal preset. I just messed with the maximizer to kind of get it to be where my levels sit usually in my track. So that's kind of the whole track. It's pretty simple when you look at the overview, but I just wanted to show you kind of how I wrote it, even though that didn't really happen in time. So this took, I think, 24 minutes to write. That's what my audio recording said on my phone. So basically anything is possible if you just sit down, and I wanted to express how cool it is that you can just sit down and write something, especially if you don't have access to the equipment necessary to write it. So a lot of people like myself don't have space for drums, or we don't have guitars or amps and stuff like that, or know how to play. So this is just a cool way to get it done, and a cool way to express ideas if you have them without having to know all the knowledge of writing, guitars with maybe even bandmates and stuff like that. So hopefully you're able to find this interesting and you were able to gain some insight. But if you made it all the way to the end, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will see you again in the next one.